Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Maple Conservative Girl podcast. My name is Danica, and today is Wednesday, April 29th, and today I am breaking down Canada's spring economic update and what it really means for Canadians. The federal government is presenting a large deficit while many Canadians continue to face rising costs of living, from housing to groceries to everyday essentials. At the same time, there's a growing debate about new policy ideas like a potential sovereign wealth fund, even as Canada continues to run significant deficits and struggles with long term fiscal balance. How do they plan to invest $25 billion into this wealth fund? And behind the scenes, Canadian politics is also heating up. Backroom talks that we are simply not a part of. So the real question is Canada's economic plan focused on long-term stability and help for actual Canadians, or is it focused on short-term political priorities? So if you like this episode, please share with somebody who you think might benefit from listening to this, and let's get right into it. So the Liberals have released their spring economic update, and as François-Philippe Champagne was introducing it in the House of Commons, I was literally laughing. Not out of happiness, but out of how insane it is that he was basically super confidently and with a smile and a smirk. He was gaslighting us Canadians and patting themselves on the back, saying that, oh, we've done this for Canadians and we've done that for Canadians, and Canada is in such a great place because of us. This government is a huge success and everybody should just be grateful. That's basically what he was saying. Now listen to this narcissistic gaslighting behavior. Might as well just spit in Canadians' faces.
I just want to say thank you, Prime Minister. I think the vision you've put for this country to build at a speed and scale not seen in generations is taking form. Canadians see it. Our fiscal position, you said it, the International Monetary Fund, the strongest fiscal position. We're growing twice as much, almost Germany, twice as much as Japan, almost 3 times like Italy. So in relative terms, you see that obviously our minds and hearts are with the people affected in sectors with tariffs, whether it's steel, softwood, aluminium, and the auto sector. So very conscious of the reality of folks in different regions of the country. Also, affordability, you said it, top of mind. You and I wake up in the morning and the thing we text each other is always about affordability. It's very clear. We understand. That's why we acted suspending the federal excise tax on fuel. People see the result at the pump. The grocery benefit, 5th of June. People will see the boost coming. And then we talk about the flagship, the sovereign fund, allowing people to invest, training the Red Seals, very important, not to build big as you ask the country to do. We're going to be able, we need people. Smart people, young people are going to be with us, and safer communities, because we've seen that we need to do more. So it's a good day for Canadians, and we're going to keep working hard to deliver. So, Edward.
Do you really think that they wake up in the morning and text each other about affordability like they care about affordability in Canada? Come on! They think that they're doing amazing. This new Liberal government, which is not at all new, by the way, which is why they always say it. They always say this new Liberal government because they know that it's actually not a new Liberal government. Like, the Liberals have been in power for 11 years now. Mark Carney advised Justin Trudeau to bring us economically where we are today. He was his economic advisor. Oh, we've done this for you, and we've done that for you, and we've cut this, and we've done this. Like, please. He talks about the rebates and the handouts, and we're just doing so much for you.
In Budget 2025, Mr. Speaker, we made generational investments to build communities, to empower Canadians, and to protect our country. Now the journey must continue. We do this by drawing on Canada's unique strengths and capabilities. We have the most educated workforce, Mr. Speaker, something we should all be proud of. We have a very strong industrial base that builds ships, cars, and planes. We have critical minerals to power the economy of the 21st century. We are an energy superpower in renewables and conventional and nuclear energy. We are the only G7 country with a free trade agreement with all other G7 nations, giving us preferential market access to 1.5 billion people around the world. This is Canada, Mr. Speaker. This is the Canada we can be proud of. A country that is strong, a country that is ambitious, a country that is confident. Above all, as the Prime Minister said, let's lead with the strengths of our values and the value of our strengths. Canada is resilient. Canada is resourceful. Canadians are resourceful people. So together, we can chart a path forward to the fog of uncertainty, because Canada has what the world wants and increasingly needs. We have the right plan. We're building big. We're moving fast. And the good news, Mr. Speaker, we're just getting started.
What is he talking about? He is a liar. Like, everything he said here is just straight up lies. He says that we have a great industrial base, except he omits the fact that it is deeply tied to the United States. Canada and America basically have a shared industrial system. Auto parts can cross the border multiple times before a car is finished. Canada exports 75% of its goods to the United States. Many factories in Canada exist because they serve the US market. Canada's industrial base is not independent. It's deeply embedded in the American economy. And now you see the media just throwing around the idea. Do we even need CUSMA? I mean, Mark Carney always boasts that we have like the best deal with America in the whole world because of CUSMA, not because of him. And these tariffs from America are tanking our industries. Industry leaders have come out and said that they are the sacrificial lambs in this tariff trade situation with the United States. The government doesn't care about these thousands of jobs obviously being bled out in Canada because of the tariffs, which are at this point all the Liberals' fault. They could negotiate with Trump, but they aren't. The Americans have said. Pete Hoekstra said that there have not been serious negotiations since October. Why? Well, because we all know they don't want to deal with America. If the system fractures, industry in Canada will become less competitive, less diversified, and more constrained. But they're building Canada strong, right? And because Carney is not negotiating, in the last 5 months, Trump's administration is starting to see that there's not a grown-up running Canada and that the government's ego is way too big, to a point where he's being irresponsible with Canadians' jobs by not negotiating. The Liberals don't want a deal with America because elbows up, which is so stupid. And the Liberals who are okay with this are people who don't have jobs in industry. They're not losing their jobs because of these tariffs. I'm pretty sure that the Liberal voters are people who have their houses paid off, they have a pension coming in. So Trump has worked around the government, and the Trump administration has now offered Canadian and Mexican aluminum and steel companies immediate tariff relief, but on the condition that they commit to moving their production facilities to the United States in the future. He is going directly to industries now because he knows that Carney is not going to get a deal. Basically, Carney is out. And this is his fault. But this is exactly what I've been saying that he wants. He never wanted a deal with America. And another lie that Champagne is spewing in this speech is that we're an energy superpower. We are not an energy superpower, okay? Net zero will not make us an energy superpower. Right now, it's unreliable, and we're throwing money at companies that are going bankrupt. Wind and solar, it's all unreliable, especially in Canada where it's like, winter 6 months out of the year. We could be closer to an energy superpower though, but not with renewables. The reality is that all of our oil basically goes to America, our only client, because we don't have pipelines to the Pacific. We don't have a way of getting our oil elsewhere. Elbows up, everybody. You'd think that the elbows up people would want to build pipelines from east to west to stop relying on America buying our oil. But instead, they don't realize like that this is totally anti elbows up because all of our oil is going to America at a discount because they're our only client. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me how they could agree with that and say elbows up. Being resource rich does not automatically make us an energy superpower. Canada's industry minister says that we're an energy superpower, but only talks about renewables. Here's the problem. Yes, Canada is strong in hydro and clean electricity, but our biggest, most valuable industry is still oil and gas. That's what drives exports. That's what brings in real money. That's what can actually boost the economy. Instead, the government is focused on net zero while limiting pipelines and long-term energy projects. So we're calling ourselves an energy superpower while holding back the one sector that already is globally competitive. Renewables matter, no question, but they don't replace the oil overnight. So the real question is, are we building the economy we have or the one that we wish we already had? Canada right now is closer to an energy heavyweight with unrealized potential than a full-fledged energy superpower. And it's going to stay that way as long as we have the liberals in power. So it's a bunch of narcissistic gaslighting liars telling us that they're doing a great job, that they're building Canada strong. They're not building anything.
This day, as the Prime Minister congratulates himself on the 11th Liberal budget on the national credit card and tells Canadians that affordability is the best it's been in a decade, let us remember that his illusions are not reality. With Canada's food prices rising the fastest in the G7, just last week in Calgary, on April 25th, thousands of families lined up for hours at the Guru Nanak Free Kitchen. Many with suitcases, Mr. Speaker, so that they could take away 80,000 pounds of free potatoes and groceries because they cannot afford to feed themselves. In Moose Jaw, the food bank has had to limit visits to once a month instead of two. I don't know what people are doing for the rest of the year. 150% increase in the demand at that local food bank under this Liberal government. Nationwide, food banks are recording nearly 2.2 million visits per month. That's double from 7 years ago. Working parents are skipping meals so their children can eat. Seniors are choosing between groceries and medication. Young families are staring down mortgage increases as inflationary government spending drives up their mortgage costs. And all of this, Mr. Speaker, is leading to real misery in people's lives. Real human costs that we saw with the report of the World Happiness Index, which saw Canada fall from 5th happiest in the world to 25th during the span of this Liberal government. Among Canadians under the age of 25, we now rank 71st behind the US, UK, Australia, and even Kazakhstan, Vietnam, and Moldova. Who would have thought that Kazakhstani youth, Vietnamese youth, Moldovan youth would be happier than Canadians in their youth in the springtime of their lives, Mr. Speaker? That is the tragedy of Liberal credit card budgeting that impose higher costs on people's lives. Here's how it works. They put the nation's bill on the national credit card, and they force Canadians to put their bills on their personal credit cards. Meanwhile, a small group of Liberal elites and corporate insiders get fantastically rich off government handouts, bailouts, and carve-outs. Today's Liberal fiscal updates brings more costs, more debt, and more bills on the national credit card. This Prime Minister is just another Liberal.
They are going to bankrupt this country. Their spending is completely out of control. They give handouts and subsidies to failing companies that they want to do well. They're spending less to invest more, everybody. First of all, to invest, you have to spend. Investing is spending. If I invest in something, I have to spend my money. And they're investing in failing industries, in things that, like Alto, which will serve only a small percentage of Canadians, but everybody has to pay the bill. And the train will only have 5 stops. But Champagne's wife works there, so gotta dish out $90 billion for the project, right? The project that is a failure before it's even begun. All to make themselves richer. And then what happens if Canada goes bankrupt or sees collapse? Well, our money would be worth absolutely nothing, all of our savings. We spend billions of dollars, $80 billion a year, on servicing just the interest on Canada's debt. Just the interest. Like, we don't have this kind of money. And they say that they're responsible fiscal managers. They doubled Trudeau's deficit. How is that fiscally responsible? And in return, and now the government has come out and said that they are opening a sovereign wealth fund. And I was seeing people online, like the Liberals, be like, "Thank you, Prime Minister. This is exactly what we needed for so long." And the people who are not economically knowledgeable hear that word, sovereign wealth fund, and think, wow, that sounds smart. And without even understanding what it is, they think it's a great idea. And so they support the Liberal government.
Around the world, you will note, have sovereign wealth funds. You need to have wealth for those funds. Norway, Singapore, and Saudi Arabia run big budget surpluses, which they accumulate and then put into their sovereign wealth funds. Carney has no surplus and therefore no wealth to put in such a fund. He's talking about a sovereign debt fund. He wants to put another $25 billion on the national credit card to gamble on a Liberal slush fund that will enrich Liberal insiders at the expense of hardworking Canadians. How many corporate welfare agencies do the Trudeau-Carney Liberals need to create before they learn that it doesn't work? They have the Canada Infrastructure Fund. Remember the Infrastructure Bank? Remember that was going to invest in all these projects? What happened with that? There's a new defense industry bank. There's the Canada Growth Fund, and countless other departmental agencies that Liberals have created and grown over the last decade to give us the worst investment and growth in the G7. And here we are. It's deja vu all over again. Borrowing yet another $25 billion out of the economy to subsidize projects that the government still cannot figure out how to approve will only cost hardworking Canadians. Multinational corporations get the profit, taxpayers will get the loss. Let's ask some basic questions. Who will get the money? Small and medium-sized businesses? Of course not. It will be the billionaires and bankers that will go to Mark Carney's elite summit coming up in September. They will again get rich, making everyone else poor. That guarantees small businesses and entrepreneurs get shut out, and politically powerful corporations get carve-outs, handouts, and bailouts.
So think of a sovereign wealth fund like Canada's piggy bank. Every time the country makes extra money, which we don't, like from oil and gas, minerals, investment, things like that, the country can either spend that money or put it away into like a piggy bank. So Carney has said that he will make it easy for us, to put our money into it if we have a little extra money. Who has a little extra money? Seriously, like rent is like $3,000. We can't afford to eat. We're lined up at food banks by the millions. And then we have the government coming out and saying, well, if you want to invest in this fund, if you have a little extra money, we'll make it easy for you to invest.
This is our country. It's your future, and we're building it together. We're catalyzing a series of nation-building projects in energy, in trade, critical minerals, transport, data, and beyond. These projects will make Canada stronger, more resilient, and more independent. They'll create good jobs and grow our economy, providing the resources that we need to take care of ourselves and take care of each other. And to make sure that all Canadians can share in these benefits, we're creating the Canada Strong Fund, Canada's first sovereign wealth fund. The Canada Strong Fund will invest alongside the private sector in nation-building projects to create wealth for Canadians today and our kids tomorrow. And if you have a bit of extra money, we'll make it easy for you to invest in the fund to help build Canada Strong for all. Canadians are choosing to buy Canadian, to explore Canadian, and build Canadian, because it's our country, and we're building our future together.
His nation-building projects is a joke. It's just bureaucracy. I mean, what has been built in Canada, or what has started getting built in Canada that is bringing wealth and value to Canadians? Build Canada Homes is doing nothing and bringing nothing of value. And I spoke all about that in my last episode or 2 episodes ago. The MOU with Alberta, a pipeline, still has not been approved because the government won't get out of the way and nobody wants to invest in building a pipeline in this investment desert. The Alto project, another joke. This is not a project that we need to be investing in. And then he asks you to give your money over to the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Like, who the hell would invest in Canada's piggy bank when Canada is running major deficits? But the thing is, all these elbows up people who really truly think that Mark Carney is like a great economic genius, they're going to put their money towards this. They're going to invest in this.
Can you explain a little bit more where the money for this fund is coming from, and specifically how much of this $25 billion endowment will be debt versus equity from the government?
Well, that's a very good question. So what we said in our release today is that we will invest $25 billion as seed capital in the fund. As you know, Canada, because we're one of the very few countries in the world, I would say there's only 2 countries in the G7 which have a AAA credit rating. Canada can borrow on the international market at some of the lowest rates that you could see. And therefore, by putting the seed money, we will be able to invest in these projects and these Canadian companies and generate a higher returns for Canadians. What is unique in what we're saying today, I think, I mean, some people will look at other sovereign wealth funds that exist in the Nordic countries, for example. But the uniqueness, I would say, of this fund is to build Canadian projects, to support Canadian companies, but also have a retail aspect to it that Canadians, should they choose to do so, can co-invest with us in building this country and benefit both collectively but also individually from these nation-building investments.
Thank you. And what's the target return on this fund?
Well, we will, the first thing we're going to do, so today is the announcement. Today there's something like the spring update, so there'll be a bit more detail if you follow me tomorrow. And then we will consult with the financial industries, different stakeholders, to make sure that we structure it in a way that will achieve the purpose that we have, which is to support nation-building projects, support Canadian company, co-invest with the private sector, because that's very important. We're going to go co-investing with them, and you'll see this is going to be an entity which will be independent from the government. I think the governance aspect is very important. It's going to be arm's length from the government, and I think investors, business people, and other funds will see that as a very important aspect of it. So we're looking at best practices to really set something which would be uniquely Canadian, inspired by best practices in the G7, and provide returns to Canadians over generations.
They're not going to build anything. Come on. He's saying that we have a AAA credit rating so that Canada can borrow. Yeah, just give them all your extra money, people, so that they can choose where to put our money, investing in projects that will be nation building. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. And I haven't seen it yet. All they've built is bureaucracy. They haven't signed any real trade deal. They're tanking our deal with America because elbows up. And who's going to manage this fund? It's at arm's length to the government, so who's going to manage it?
Ottawa's spring economic update. The finance minister says Canada is in a better than expected position, driven by surging oil prices and a resilient economy.
This is an historic moment, Mr. Speaker. Generations will look back at this Prime Minister, this government, this Parliament, to say that we have been there for them.
But the opposition says that doesn't stack up with reality.
This Liberal Prime Minister has now doubled the deficit that Justin Trudeau left behind, from $31 billion to $65 billion.
So what does the spring fiscal update mean for you? What does it tell us about the government's approach? I'm Rosemary Barton, here to break it all down. A special edition of At Issue. Andrew Coyne, Althea Raj, and in for Chantal Hébert, Aaron Weary is here tonight. Thank you all for being here. I was on the Globe and Mail website, Andrew, and I saw you had posted a reaction video, so I already have a sense of what you're going to say. But give me your thoughts on what you made of this document, which, happily for me anyway, wasn't a mini budget. It was really an update.
Well, you asked what does it tell us? Not much. I mean, we're still waiting to find out what this government's economic vision is and how it differs from the old government that it supposedly replaced. What we do know is we're facing a growth crisis. We have been for many years in this country, where the government is now projecting growth of 1.7% per year, which is half what we grew even in the 80s, a third of what we grew in the 50s and 60s, and seems entirely unconcerned about this. We're facing a rising debt to GDP ratio, especially when you combine it with the provinces. The government is not only unconcerned about this, but presents a kind of a cack-handed way of explaining it, where if you subtract the CPP and the QPP, we have a debt to GDP ratio of only 10%. Well, you can't actually use pension funds to pay off your debts. It's a completely bogus comparison. But this is the thing. It's the same complacency. It's the same very top-down, government-directed, state-run pension investment funds and this kind of thing. There's really not any sort of new development policy and no sense of the seriousness of the situation we're in.
Well, to play devil's advocate, the skills training money and attempt to try to get more people into the trade seems significant in order to get the economy moving in the direction the government wants to. I mean, whether it works or not, I don't know, but I'll let you weigh in quickly, Andrew. Yeah.
I think that's worthwhile. I'm not saying that's bad policy, but that's not going to lift a $3.3 trillion economy off the floor.
A lot of Canadians feel like government spending has become very top-down. High taxes come in from us, and then governments decide where that money goes. Programs, rebates, incentives, and one-time payments. None of these things are solving the core issue of the problems that we have in Canada today. Is this actually improving affordability and productivity in Canada? Because despite billions in spending, many Canadians still feel like housing costs are out of reach, groceries keep rising, wages are just not keeping up. And instead of structural change, we often see short-term relief programs or one-time payments. Supporters say that these programs help families in the moment. Critics say that they don't fix the underlying issues in the economy. So the debate isn't just about spending, it's about whether Canada's economic system is actually delivering results for the people paying into it. Now, obviously, this rebate is going to help people. Like it's going to help people pay for debts that they've accumulated, to pay for food. I mean, I'm sure it's going to make many people very happy to get this payment from the government just entering their accounts. But the thing is, they'll be like, oh wow, if I keep voting for this Liberal government, then I'll just keep getting the handouts. And I mean, the handouts, they're not solving anything. They want you to thank them and rely on them. If they were doing such a great job with the economy like they say that they are, why do they need to give us a handout of our own money?
I'm sure I hear from Canadians every day who do not feel that. And in particular, when the Prime Minister in the House of Commons, on 2 occasions that I can think of in the past few weeks, says, affordability, it is the most affordable time for Canadians in the last decade. That rings particularly hollow. And there are a couple of reasons for that, though he keeps talking about how wages are outpacing inflation. I mean, if your wage goes up 3% this year, but you've seen a 30% increase in the price of food over the last 5 years, it doesn't feel like it gets you that far ahead. Sure, that's a certain income quintile, but it's not everybody. And in fact, as measured by Statistics Canada, the income inequality in this country was at a record level last year and a record level the year before. So and even the wage growth, right? For the highest income earners, they're going up 5% a year. For the lowest, it's 1.8%. There is nothing in what you table today to address that.
What I would say in terms of affordability measures, if you look at, again, we have taken $7 billion in new revenue, 66%, 68% is to address affordability. I'm with you when you say what people think when they wake up, many Canadians, is affordability, end of the week, end of the month. And that's why the pillar of the biggest pillar of affordability is housing, affordable homes. Because, people, that's usually the biggest portion of what you spend. We're taking generational approach to that. They say making sure that we have more affordable homes. That's the biggest.
Housing starts are forecast to go down this year.
Well, if you look at the price of rent and the price of homes, you see that there's easing of pressures even in the major urban centers. But we've been there with grocery. I mean,
that's exactly right. Vashi has nailed it here. The one-time rebate that goes to the poorest of the poor, like, how could this finance minister say that this is a good thing? It's a band-aid on a bullet hole. It will do absolutely nothing but cause an increase in inflation in the end, because where are we getting this money? We already have a deficit of like $80 billion. They don't want to solve the actual core problems Canada is facing. They want to tank our economy and then have you rely on their small little handouts, on them. They want you to rely on them. They want to control everything. After taxing us into oblivion, they want you to rely on their small handouts. But they're building Canada strong, right? This is not how you build Canada strong. This is socialism, and we all know where that leads. It doesn't work in big countries.
I'm also quite concerned about the nods to social programs. The government, the Prime Minister, we just heard Minister Champagne talking about being there for Canadians. The Prime Minister talks about childcare, talks about healthcare. They're letting the bilateral healthcare agreements lapse on mental health addiction, mental services, health addiction, long-term care, home care. On the childcare, there is no new money for childcare. They're letting an infrastructure fund lapse, which means that there's no capital funding for new childcare spaces, which could mean, I've spoken to child advocates right after the budget ended, they're worried that this program basically will collapse if there's no new injection. It's certainly not going to get to the universality that we heard former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland talk about. And on pharmacare, there's not a mention of pharmacare. So all that money that the government has set aside, about $600 million that Nova Scotia wants, that Newfoundland and Labrador want, the government is not signaling an intention to do anything on that. And when you talk about building Canada strong, you know, how can you have a country where only 17% of Canadians are covered? And, you know, it's great if you have diabetes in the Yukon, you have access to medication. But if you have diabetes in Nova Scotia, well, I'm sorry, you're going to have your leg amputated because the government doesn't want to spend the money there. So I think there's going to be some interesting conversations to be had in the next couple of months about the direction the government is headed.
People keep saying that conservatives don't care about Canadians because they might cut government programs like childcare and healthcare. But look at what's actually happening with the federal childcare program in Canada. The Canada-wide childcare system sounds great on paper, but in reality, many parents are still struggling to find available daycare spaces even with subsidies. Waitlists are long, very long, availability is limited, and families are still paying out of pocket and are unable to access care at all. Instead of focusing only on expanding access through government programs, conservatives argue that Canada should also consider lowering taxes and letting families choose the childcare that works best for them. Because a childcare program only works if families can actually get into it. That is the real issue that Canadians are dealing with right now. I truly believe that they are intentionally wanting this economy to collapse so that you will have to rely on them to basically control your life. You will own nothing, but you will be happy.
This isn't something Canadians have ever seen before. A government trying to convince sitting MPs to switch sides just to build themselves a majority. I know because I was approached by them, because it happened directly to me. I can say plainly what that looked like. First, it was pressure. I was told a candidate would be run in Kitchener Centre with support from both the Liberals and the Greens, and that I wouldn't stand a chance as a Conservative. You know what? I'm going to leave that up to the voter. When that didn't work, it turned into compliments. I was told they'd be watching my work on committees, especially on AI and digital policy, and that there could be a spot for me on their team. When that didn't land either, it became about benefits. I was told switching sides would be very good for my riding, giving Kitchener Centre's role as Canada's innovation capital. Let me be clear. I am not turning my back on the people who elected me, and I am not going to help any government build power through backroom conversations. Canada is supposed to run on fair elections and straight answers. Backroom deals like this are not leadership. They're a sneaky power grab, and Canadians shouldn't accept it. This is exactly why they need to keep committee structure as elected, not recruited.
Can you believe it? They don't give a damn about democracy or the will of the people. We told them what we wanted a year ago in the general election, and instead of working to make Canada more affordable and actually bringing real change and relief to the people of this country, what are they focused on? They're focusing their time and attention on trying to woo people over to the other side. What a complete and utter disgrace. Thank you all for listening to this episode, and I hope that you have a beautiful Wednesday, and I will see you again on Friday. Bye!